that we do have one quick public comment early to share before we do the agenda.
Can you see me on Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, because I somehow got it off my screen and now I'm trying to figure out where it is. Let's see. Oh, that wasn't it. Sheesh. I might have to start from 0 again. Give me just a second. I'll log in again. See if this does something. There we go. All right. Disaster averted. All right, Heather, I just got something about this meeting's going to be recorded. Does that mean we're live?
It's telling me we're live and it's being recorded.
Okay, so I'd like to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. Today is Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. And I am Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission. If we could go around and introduce ourselves.
Eileen Cotter-Howell, Commissioner.
Paula Booth, Commissioner.
Rachel Bucci, Commissioner.
Michael Hernandez, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
Heather.
And Heather Dimke with Public Works. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Heather, why don't you start with the public comment that you are going to present?
Yes, I had just a couple emails come through questioning the process for murals, and Rita Alves, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name, would like to insert one comment today. She shared that I would just like to insert the comment that I am in favor of simplifying the mural approval process, and I think the committee should look into ways to help fund public art, such as grants or an art tax.
Okay, great. I'm not familiar with that individual, but it's great to get support from the community. Did she identify what ward she might live in within the city, Heather?
No, and I didn't ask. I will do that next time.
I know, when you testify at city council, they do ask you to identify
Right.
what ward you happen to reside in.
Could you repeat the person's name? I didn't catch that at the beginning.
Her name is Rita Alves, A-L-V-E-S.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And I mean, there are definitely examples of other jurisdictions in Oregon that make grants, arts grants on a local level. There are also examples of jurisdictions that impose an arts tax, such as Portland. Okay.
Actually, related to that, I saw that the Marion, gosh, I'm going to get this mixed up. I think it's the Marion County
Cultural Development Corp.
Yes, that's it. Is giving grants right now for arts related activities, and you don't have to be a nonprofit, and I think it's up to $2,000. I saw this on social media, and I haven't had a chance yet to go and look at their link, but anyhow, I'm just mentioning that because there may be people who are interested in doing a project like that, and that is a place where they can get some funding, and since we don't have that kind of funding available to distribute. So just mentioning that.
Yeah, well, it's good information to know about. So the Oregon Cultural Trust distributes 1/3 of its funding every year through a network of county and tribal cultural coalitions. And ours is in Marion County is called the Marion Cultural Development Corporation. It is a 501c3. The money runs through the COG, the Council of Governments, and there is a board, and they have focused on community-based grants, on the low level, like up to $2,000, The awards to each county are based on a base and then a population factor. So Marion County is kind of in the middle of the dollar spread. But the open period for grants is in the fall. And so it could be coming to a close very soon if it has not already.
I just pulled it up
Oh, good.
while you were talking, Chris. It looks like, well, the website, if people are watching this and want to go to it, it's marionculturaltrust.org. And it looks like their application for 2021 projects is currently, well, it will be open beginning October 16th and applications close November 16th.
Oh, good.
And all of the information is at that website that I just mentioned, and people can apply online. And like I said earlier, you don't have to be a 501c3 organization to receive a grant.
But do they state specifically that an individual can apply, or do they just say you can be a community-based group without a 501c3?
Good question. I think you have to be a community-based group.
Yeah.
Unincorporated groups. Oh no, it says unincorporated groups or individuals can apply if sponsored by a tax-exempt organization or local unit of government. So yeah, maybe a phone call would be in order if you're an individual to figure out how you go about that. But it seems fairly open compared to some other grants. So.
And does it say that period of grant activity starts in January?
Yeah, it says, yeah, January 2021 is the beginning of the grant period.
I was just thinking about the Echo Earth Ball conversation that we're going to have this morning, and whether we could get $2,000 towards that project, applying, coming from the city, an application coming from the city. Anyway, well, thank you for bringing that up, because I really do hope that people will spread the word. As you know, I created these cultural coalitions when I worked for the state, and some are better than others. The Marion County one is probably right in the middle, maybe a B- grade. I say that very objectively, because some of the other coalitions have actually put a little bit of money into support for Oregon Arts Watch, and so, which then hires local writers to prepare news items about things that are happening in a particular county, and then that news gets out statewide. So Yamhill County does that, for example, and you wonder why all this great info comes out about McMinnville. Well, it's because they probably made a $2,000 grant to help fund the freelancers in the county who write some really nice pieces. And our group, they come together, they make some grants, and then they go back to their various places in the community. We could do more in Marion County if people pushed for it. So that's a separate conversation.
So do the Arts Coalition, do they give their grants to Arts Watch, you said?
Some of them have made grants to Arts Watch.
Okay.
Like Lincoln County. The reason you see great stories coming out about the Lincoln City Cultural Center and artists at the beach is because they make a small grant to Oregon Arts Watch. They hire the stringers, the freelancers who are in the community to write the stories, and then they push them out statewide. I wish more of them would do that.
Can I ask a question about that? I am newly on the Polk County Cultural Coalition. And with that Arts Watch, is there a way to reach out to them to encourage them to apply? Because I haven't seen any grant requests from that group.
Who's the chair in Polk County? Coalition.
I'm spacing his name right now. He's the librarian, a main librarian for the Dallas Library. Mark, okay. I can't think of his last name.
I'm gonna I'll figure out what his name might be and email you. And then I can do a virtual intro with the guys at Arts Watch and then figure out how other people make it happen. You know,
Okay.
whether they submit a grant application or whether they do a carve out or what. But that would be great.
Can they
Um,
do it in Marion County too?
Yeah. Um, Does anybody know Bridget Zanni? She is the current chair in Marion County. It's interesting that none of
We
you
don't know.
said
who
yes.
she is.
It's Mark Johnson.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of names on their board and I recognize a few of them.
Well, there's some good people.
Mhm.
but, you know,
Eleanor Berry is on it
Yep,
and Galen McAllister.
yep.
Susie
Susie
Powers.
Powers, who used to work with SAA.
Mhm.
Now she's back and from her husband's sabbatical.
Levi
Robert
Herrera
Salvo from
Lopez
CEP.
is from Mono a Mono.
Yep. Okay, well, I'm feeling the pressure to move
Yeah.
on, but I
Okay.
appreciate I really do appreciate the you're bringing that up, and I'm delighted that someone in the city submitted a public comment.
Yes.
That was positive, so that's great. And I mean, I guess we should all encourage people to do that. You know. All right, I would like to maybe make a slight adjustment to the agenda and bring up the Echo Earth Ball discussion first before we move into the other topics, if that's agreeable with the group.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Heather, I'm going to let you set this up since you have been working on the city side to see if we can put the right steps in place to take a request for the Echo Earth Ball repair to the legislature in the
Yeah,
January session.
right. My apologies that proposal came in so late last night. I sent it out to the entire group from ARG. I wasn't really sure if we were going to get it this week. Everything's been kind of a mad rush lately. But engineering and I did reach out to ARG. They're our primary consultant of record for art preservation. So we had a couple different conversations with Maya and the other gentleman that was included on the proposal. And they turned around really quickly and sent that back yesterday within a matter of a couple days. So I did send that out to the group. They seem a bit concerned with the timeline that we have, and that's it's been brought to my attention that if we want to wrap this up by the end of the year, and I did put that in the email, this really does first need to go through the legislative committee, which right now it's scheduled to meet again. They meet the end of every month. They're scheduled to meet November 27th. Given the holiday, that might move by a day or two around that same time frame. But if we really want to move forward and have something in place by the beginning of next year, because after it goes through the legislative committee, we'll take it to council. Then we really need to have that proposal and the updated costs by November 16th is the deadline that we gave ARG. And so at this point, we're assuming that, and it's included in their proposal, that really what's needed since 2017, there hasn't been another look closely at the Eco Globe. And that was a report by Cascadia. As stated in the proposal, it really wasn't definitive on what for sure was causing some of the tiles to begin to fall. And so what was requested is that ARG do an updated kind of condition assessment, look closer at maybe what some of those causes it's assumed, but not for sure that there's been some water infiltration below the tiles. And so we're going to have them take a closer look at that, really kind of get to the bottom of what the issues are, and then update those cost estimates that we can then hopefully take to our legislators next year to request funding. And Eileen, yeah.
A couple of questions for you, Heather. There was no mention of the asbestos issue that I
That
read.
was shared and discussed with, thank you for bringing that up again, though. That was shared and discussed with ARG, and we in fact, we had a separate report. Bullseye had done some material sampling. That information has been forwarded to ARG, so they are aware that asbestos was found and that we're likely going to have to abate that in some way, shape, or form before the tiles can be replaced.
And are they, as far as their estimate, are they building on the Robert Kruger report from Cascadia?
Cascadia,
Or are they starting from the scratch again?
well, it's my assumption that they're going to have to build from that. They have all of that information. I don't know exactly what all the methodology they're going to use this time around, but they have that information they're relying on. And I know Maya had mentioned maybe some infrared equipment that could be used to kind of look closer at the water infiltration. That could be more definitive. But yes, my assumption is they're using that information as well.
Other comments from any other commissioners?
I just have a question about, so are we basically going under the assumption that the original report by Cascadia is this kind of like a quote second opinion, as it were, or I mean, nothing has changed in terms of the conditions and the damage, other than it's gotten worse since 2017. So I'm just wondering why we're bringing in a completely different firm to update and do a possible new proposal instead of Cascadia to update it.
So my understanding, and I need to read back through the Cascadia as well. That was before my time, but it threw out some possible reasons of what was going wrong, but it wasn't by any means definitive, and it didn't include the cost estimate that we need to move forward. The costs that we do have were produced in-house, basically from our engineering, and really required a lot of assumptions that folks still have on exactly what needs to happen so that we don't have tile falling as we move into the future. So I know for sure that they're going to look at the option of maybe just replacing what's fallen, but I know our engineering especially, they're not solid that that's probably the best approach. We don't want to have to fix this again in a few years. So really we're just looking for them to do a much more thorough, it sounds like, assessment, and such that we can get a finer cost estimates. What we have now are real ballpark cost estimates with a lot of unknowns. And so we really need to fine tune that before we can take it to our legislators.
And also, I believe, and you can check this too, Heather, I believe that Robert Kruger was actually working with AIG on this.
Yeah, I'll double check. I don't know.
You mean?
I don't think
Robert
so.
Kruger was working for ARG or in?
No, it seemed to me it was some relationship with them, and so he's with Cascadia, but I'm not. But I do recall, and it was before Heather came on, so.
I don't think he was working with them. We had worked with them previously on the Peace Mosaic assessment.
Right.
But I don't think they ever looked at the Eco-Earth.
No, but Robert, no, it just seems it's so long ago. I think Heather, you need to check all of this. But in my brain, I'm feeling that he was working in conjunction with them. He was doing all the work.
I think that just to step back for a minute, I do think it would be good to just put together the timeline of what's happened to date and by whom, just to be clear. I do think the fact that none of us are remembering clearly supports the notion for a refresh on where we stand on this.
Yeah.
And I know when I spoke to Mayor Bennett about, actually, he was concerned that Salem get its piece of state cultural funding. We talked, and he said, well, what else is going on? And I brought up the Echo Earth Ball. And it was the mayor who suggested that the time was right to approach the legislature because Peter Courtney will still be a legislator in the upcoming session. And of course, Senator Courtney, he could be retiring soon because of his age and the fact that he's been in office for many years. So I think that in order for us to put together a package, that's what they're called, a funding package for this earth ball repair, we need current information. And I know a couple of people who work for ARG, but I did not know the people whose resumes were attached to the proposal. And they do seem to be kind of the material conservator folks. They're not about the building, they're about the terracotta or the whatever other building materials they're dealing with. And I thought their fee, it appeared reasonable to me in terms of the amount of time and the rates and what have you. But I fear that if we are going to make any effort to do this, both with the mayor's support and in the Senator Courtney window of opportunity, we have to be prepared for the upcoming session. And actually, it's pretty late to be starting these conversations because it's already October. They'll come in, in February and then, or late January, then they'll go home and then they'll come back. But a lot of deals get cooked now. Anyway, what about further, your points are well made, Eileen. What about further discussion?
I had a comment regarding, so it says here that they're proposing to, does it feel to everybody else that they're proposing a scenario of the repair being a, the asbestos issue, so eliminating that before anything's reapplied, but is the assumption here that it's just a reapplication of what's already there? We've talked about a lot of, we brainstormed a little bit regarding other pathways for, like new technologies or anything that would say, hey, well, we don't want to go ceramic tile again. Maybe there's other solutions, and then cost associated, because obviously that would help people make decisions once they see price tags. But the idea, it's always precarious to me to think that you would only repair, like Heather's saying, only to repair what's kind of broken and then leaving asbestos behind. I mean, that scenario to me seems very odd. In general terms, usually you hear asbestos associated with paint or, a building or school or whatever, that they get rid of it. They don't leave it behind. Once it's identified that it's there, due diligence is they get rid of it totally. So in that assumption, so there's a partial repair and replacement. The second could be total removal of all tile and then to get rid of the asbestos and then reapply. And then third would be, what question mark, 2 or 3, like, they can do digitally printed ceramic tiles.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they could do photography of what's existing and recreate new ceramic tiles digitally printed or whatever. It's, again, what are the price tags?
Mm-hmm.
So this assessment that we're looking at, that the city's going to pay for, it seems to be very narrow in terms of what, Chris, you're advising. You're getting an opportunity to get in there and provide the right information that's up to date. But I'm concerned that this is so narrow in scope in terms of it's really only addressing one pathway. And is it reasonable to assume that we could, or do we even want, what are people's feelings on what we should try to include in this or amend in here or add to at a later date to get some other relevant I guess, pathways for recommending repair, replacement, reimagined, whatever.
I think that's a really, really good point or points. And I know that at least at one former meeting, I suggested that, we consider if, all options. So maybe the Echo Earth Ball is recreated using digital technology, printed on a polymer,
Yep.
fiber, an artificially,
Yep.
material base.
Yeah, things that aren't porous and
Yeah,
don't have a higher UV
yeah,
protection.
because there are companies that, that do that kind of work.
Sure.
I think there are fabricators in Portland who could at least, that ARG could speak to. So I guess maybe, Heather, it seems like you're on the right path to get a contract approved with ARG. Is there opportunity to, put a provision into that scope of work that allows them to think about alternatives to repair? So of course, that in lieu of spending a lot of money, $1 million, let's just say, to glue some broken stuff on and get some other things refabricated in clay to be glued on. We know we can't change the Oregon climate and weather. Is there an opportunity for us, for ARG to say, there are alternatives here to a reconstruction? There could be a fabrication of the work in a different medium. I don't know. I think it'd be worth having the conversation.
I think from my perspective, I think it makes perfect sense to bring that up and to bring that to their attention. I think until we have a cost, there's a certain number of people in the community that, that have put a lot of work into this and are hoping to see it, preserved as it was created. So I think until we know what the cost, a finer cost estimate might be to simply replace what we have now, I think then we can start having those other conversations. And ARG, quite frankly, is not going to be able to give us any cost estimates for just kind of some general other ideas, at this point in time. So that's what they can do. They can give an updated assessment of what's going on now and what it would be to replace what we have now. But anything beyond that is still pretty speculative, I would just say.
As far as
there-
sorry, go ahead.
Well, to give us the cost of what it would, take to replace what we have, but does that also include some guarantee of longevity? I mean,
Well,
or are
we're
we just
hoping
going
that-
back to an Eco Earth Ball that's gonna fall apart 10 years from now?
Right. Well, once we have a better understanding of exactly what's going on, I mean, we assume that there's water in there. Like I said, we don't really know for sure, what the causes are. Once we have a better idea of what's causing the problems, they can provide recommendations on what we need to do to fix it for the future. And I think it's assumed by everybody that there's going to be some kind of, it's outside, that it's not going to be, without need for some kind of maintenance or sealing or so we're hoping that they can provide that. We've asked for that guidance as well.
Did they already take samples, or are they going to drill into this? And
Samples were taken previously about the same time frame as the Cascadia report. We had Bullseye so they took samples and the asbestos was found. They tested for other materials as well, and I don't think anything was found, but that was done. I don't know if they're going to want to do it. They did write that in as an option that they might do more testing, it looked like, but.
And so
Go ahead, Spencer.
are they worried that the ball is filled with water that is now contaminated and leaking?
I haven't heard that concern.
Okay.
I think, again, just trying to really get a solid understanding of what all the materials are that we're working with.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to harp on the asbestos thing, but is there any liability knowing that could be leaching into the to the soil that's surrounding it or the perimeter, or is there any liability issues regarding the knowledge that it exists? And then
Well, I don't know
I guess
about
you can always
liability.
test the soil around it.
Right, it's public that we found it, right? And so that is the push that I'm getting from engineering and from other city staff is now, we know it's there.
Yeah.
We don't really, it's not in our best interest to just try to patch and patch over it. I think the preferred approach is to do abatement of that and then reinstall.
Eileen, you're next.
Yeah, one of the issues was that Robert Kruger couldn't really go forward because we didn't really authorize that to find out more about it because it was getting so expensive already just to do that much. And also I do remember that once the asbestos was found, that kicked up the cost tremendously because we were talking abatement. So I believe that's where it hit it up to the $1 million figure.
Well, and that was a couple years old per engineering. Again, the dollar figures have probably only gone up, which makes sense since that time. So
Yeah.
So, Rachel?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of circle back to what you had said earlier, Chris, about looking at the previous reports and kind of refreshing where we are. I mean, I understand that we're on a time crunch for this session, but I also recall that there was a significant amount of work that Kruger put into it in terms of determining what the cause was. And so to pay to have that done again just doesn't seem, they should perhaps build on his recommendations or his findings, I think. And also I remembered it's Heritage Restoration Group. Did they change their name, right? To Cascadia?
I think they were Cascadia and now Heritage.
Okay, so in any case, I do recall that he had recommendations about what was causing the failure and what to do to
He had a
remediate.
couple of separate theories, if you recall that, Rachel. One was that the construction that was going on the bridge may have added to the problems. And then, of course, one was just plain water seeping in over the years. Also, there was a question about how the ball was pressure washed by the city. And that was another issue that was raised at that time. So there were several different possibilities. And we basically said, well, we just have got to stop because it was just starting to snowball.
Yeah, and also I remember another discussion of the actual quick set that was used,
Right.
and whether it was to the right proportions.
Or temperature. I remember
Temperature,
that was
yeah,
also another
yeah.
factor.
Yeah,
So because it was used off label, as it were, for this project.
Yeah, and to add to that, I do recall that it's mixed in batches so that from day to day or from section to section that they found that there might be some irregularity to the, again, it could have been a day that's cooler and they added, that it was just a little off. It is with catalyst and resin. I mean, if you're just a little off, I mean, it can be a really different situation.
Okay, so
I have the Cascadia report and I'm putting that in an email to forward to you all right now so that you'll have that as well.
And of course, Courtney talked extensively with Robert Kruger, so she may be able to fill in some gaps too.
I've chatted with her a bit. It's a bit fuzzy as well. That was 2017. So
yeah,
but she's aware of this.
for further discussion, or are people ready to make a decision this morning.
I
So
have a
that,
question for you, Chris. As far as the legislature, since we're actually talking about potentially moving to different materials, how do we approach the legislature for money for a project that we don't really know what we're going to be doing with?
well,
So again, here's my assumption is we're gonna get updated costs to preserve what we have. And a couple different approaches from ARG to do that process. I think before we go to the legislature, obviously the amount's going to be large. If we want to take that information before we go to the legislator and propose alternatives, we'll be more armed at that point, I think, to do so. I don't know what's going to come back from their assessment. But I did mention in conversations, we certainly aren't going to move forward with something that's we're going to have to repair and have the same issue again in a matter of years. So I think, again, once we have those final costs, we'll be better poised to make the decision on the next step forward.
yeah, I think those are good points. I do think that selling this project on the basis of, a beloved community art project that used industrial material from Salem's past and its position now in a riverfront park that is being further developed, I think you could craft a persuasive argument. And I know, because I follow both Michael and CB2 Architects on Instagram, the recent photographs that CB2 has had taken, they look like drone shots, but showing the layout of the park, the site of the Jerry Frank new amphitheater that's under construction, and then the earth ball at the nexus to the bridge going to Minto. This thing is big and it's in a very important position in terms of the overall site development. Those photographs are super powerful. I think Ron Cooper might have taken them or had them taken. But to me, this is about it. Yes, we can have all of the, costs, but this is the story about something that now has become an icon in this big park that's used by lots of people in Salem for lots of different reasons. I'm excited to take this. I'm excited, first of all, that the mayor even wants to take this to the legislature. That's huge. And then, there's a bridge named for Senator Courtney that's right on the path to this earth ball. So anyway, once, we start having some conversations with people to take the temperature of the water, we can see how far this is going to go. We've got a number of races, legislative races in the community. So
I would just like to add one last thing is it fair to think that they could just at least include a cost to remove and store, not discard the tiles, to remove all of it and to get rid of whatever potential has caused this by getting all the way down to the metal or whatever it is. Because again, we talked in the past about fundraising. The price tags might be so high that there might be a need for more fundraising. So my idea is, could there be a cost associated not just with removing and repairing what's already loose or fallen off, but the idea of getting it down to its base, that then would be, what's that number? And then the number for other executions against putting everything back on, or some other idea, because in phases would be, yes, everyone would see everything removed down to this ball, who knows what that looks like, but that then people would see like this is in need of, this is just part, they're not done. There's more money that needs to be raised, and over what period of time would be reasonable to allow for that to be it might take a couple years or something versus trying to come up with all that money at one time.
Thank you. And I think it was expressed previously that folks, might be interested in engaging in that effort again. And we might have more volunteers that would show up and help to replace or do other work as well. So I can certainly push for, once we get that assessment, the estimated costs that they give are as itemized and broken out as possible so that we have as much flexibility in those decisions moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we have before us this morning is essentially, I see it as a recommendation from the city that we approve the payment of a certain amount to ARG to conduct this work, with the intent that a proposal would be taken to the legislature in the 2021 session. And you've got the proposal and you've got the proposed budget. And Heather has given us the background on the amount, the balance in the public art fund at the city, and the fact that this is a $17,000 project against that $60,000 balance. Is anyone ready to make a motion to proceed with the, go ahead, Eileen?
And before we go to that, Chris, at this particular point, we have this division of how we can spend the money. Is that going to impact this as well?
I've had those conversations with staff. So right now the funds that we have are in acquisition, right? So this would require that we further overspend our maintenance division, which we're already, I have the tallies. We're already in the hole on that one for about $400 in minus for maintenance. But so I have been having these conversations. It would have been more ideal had we pushed forward the request to council to remove those allocations from our fund. That said, what was recommended is if SPAC is okay overspending for the Eco Earth, that I need to likely push forward quickly. We'll either let council know via staff report. I think October 26th is their next session. So we would let them know that we have the funds available, but that we've had to overspend our maintenance allocation for this purpose. And we would likely at that same time probably push forward just to have those revisions requested in our code. We know that council, this is a priority for at least a couple of the different members of city council. There's not been any concerns from legal or other in us requesting to remove those allocations. So it would just be kind of a move forward quickly. This is an opportunity that we've had and the group has agreed upon. So we would move forward quickly with those proposed revisions.
And I do think if I'm remembering correctly, when I gave the last SPAC report to City Council, it was Councilor Lewis who made the final comment that we should definitely not lose sight of the repairs that the earth ball needed. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I do not worry about this setting a dangerous precedent for SPAC in terms of the budget.
I'm wondering if it's possible to ask the city council to split the cost of this or possibly provide a grant for this. The amount that we have left in our balance sheet, this is close to 30% of that, and it's more than 100% of our allocation that comes annually from the TOT. I'm just wondering about, our capacity to spend for something like this and the expectations around what the Public Arts Commission is responsible for and whether this is, beyond the scope of this group. There's a question that I'm throwing out there. A couple of questions, I guess.
I think that that's a very good point raised, Rachel, because of the fact that we also have repairs on the Mattingly mural. That's becoming more and more apparent that that needs to be done as well. So the amount of money that is adding up on that, on the maintenance side, is beyond our scope, really.
Well, I can certainly ask staff if they feel like that's even an option. I think, as you all know, council has a number of priority right now. Homelessness and other issues are really taking precedence. I don't know how the optics of how that would be perceived, given that we do have this fund in place and we've continued to receive the last few years top transfers. I think many would look to us to take care of the collection, given the funds that we have, and we need to move forward to ensure that maintenance is not as big of an issue as it has been as we move forward. I'm not sure how that's going to look if we request additional assistance at this time, but I can certainly try.
The only other, I agree with you completely, Heather. You know, we have a fund balance that we don't have a finite plan to use right now in terms of new acquisitions. I mean, that's a separate conversation, but I do think that I think it's fine if you went back to Peter and said, you know, SPAC just asked if there's any other money that could be used for this, but I would expect the answer to be probably a no, unless I know that Riverfront Park has some funds that are restricted to that park. I don't know if any funds would be available through that. Yeah.
I did look into that previously. I was asking about the improvements that are going on there and whether or not any of that fund qualified for percent for artwork. And really the way that the current code is written, the infrastructure and work that they're doing out there, it does not trigger public art funding.
Okay.
But I'm happy to bring that question up.
I would, listening to your arguments, I totally agree. I think we should let that go.
Yeah, I think it's, I think this situation further reinforces the need for more investment in the maintenance of what the city has in its collection. We have made that point repeatedly. Now, city councilors are on the record as saying, try to figure out a way to fix the earth ball. Here's a step in the right direction. You know, I think, again, I did just drive by the Mattingly mural. I agree that, you know, restoration, ongoing maintenance for that work is needed. And the city is going to have, you know, when we finally have time on their full agenda to talk about what we've done, what's kind of coming down the pike, preservation is a big part of this. I do think, you know, again, going back to the Oregon Heritage Commission to see if we can get some funding, because this is a preservation, it's a community arts project, but it is a preservation project for Oregon. So, you know, just having a conversation with them about whether it's even reasonable for the city to prepare a grant application. You know, I mean, I could help with that. But I do think that the sands are trickling down in the hourglass in terms of being ready to have a conversation in this legislative session. And if you miss that window, it doesn't come back for 2 years. And, you know, in the big scheme of things, I don't think $17,000 is a huge amount of money, but I'm one person.
I know the engineer, Troy, had taken a look and he didn't have concerns with the prices that they provided. His concern was that they were going to try to propose to simply replace what had fallen. And again, that's not viewed as the best approach forward. So
All right. Let's go back to are you ready to make a decision about this morning? If so, I would need someone to make a motion to endorse the proposal that was submitted to the city by ARG with a scope of work as outlined, understanding that, there some comments were made this morning that I think could be conveyed to ARG, like making sure the previous work is, reviewed and studied, considered, and also, somebody just texted me. I just lost my train of thought. And that they consider whether the ultimate repair is even feasible, or whether some new replication of this would be better served in the long term.
I'll go ahead and propose it, but we can't remember all of that. So let's say I motion that we go ahead and accept the ARG proposal to understand what's happening with the Eco Earth, but also speak to ARG to include the two conditions that we were talking about, to take into account Robert Kruger's previous work, and perhaps maybe reduce the cost of the estimate accordingly. And then the second was Michael's recommendation that we also get some estimate as to what it would be if we completely switched gears and moved to a different material.
I have a question about that. Are you suggesting that does your motion suggest that the ARG proposal price of $17,000 be reduced if they review the Kruger report? Did I hear that correctly?
I'm suggesting that they take into account the Kruger report and begin with that. And so not duplicating work that has previously been done.
So so they have the report, and it was just basically an assumption on my part. I know that they were looking at what was in that to move forward, but I can request that they clarify that in their proposal, that they are building upon that, if that would help.
I'm not my background doesn't really make me very good at making these proposals.
No,
So someone who else is a little bit more experienced probably should take over right now.
Well, there's a motion. There's a motion on the table. It needs a second. I do think the spirit of Eileen's motion seems reasonable. Look at the past work, validate it or raise questions about it. Don't. Yeah.
And included in that is that the costs looking forward would be flexible enough to allow a number of different options for restoration.
Yes.
Yes, that's good. All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it. Oh.
Yeah, or Paula is. Go ahead, Paula.
We've got 3 seconds. Perfect. Further discussion on the motion. Ready to vote? All those in favor of moving forward with this proposal with the caveats that have been outlined, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. The motion, everybody voted yes, the motion passes.
Thank you. So again, I did forward the Cascade report. If you have any other questions, I will be in contact with Maya of ARG today. Again, I know they've been concerned about the timeline that we have. So they're going to want to move quickly. If you have questions, let me know. If you'd like to be part of the discussions, I think they said in the proposal that they had scheduled a tentative date to come down and do their assessment. And they're going to, I think, probably use one of the city's booms to get up and kind of do whatever it is that they're doing. If you want to be a part of that, I think that'd be wonderful. It would help to have all of your perspectives. So let me know.
That's great. Let's make sure we share that date. I think it'd be interesting. I can definitely come and take some pictures.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it'd be cool to document just in
Yeah.
case there's any way to, for a presentation or something in later date.
Yep, exactly. Okay, thank you very much. We now are at the 10:30 mark. Next up is the police station. Am I correct about that? I don't have the agenda in front of me, Heather.
Yes, that had been first on the list. So yes, we're back to Equitas.
So thank you to Spencer and to Michael for sharing photographs of the installed work. I had a chance to go over to the site myself and did walk through the barriers. Angie of the police department happened to come out. She didn't recognize me behind my mask and under my hat in the rain. She said, "Are you a neighbor?" I said, "No, it's me from the Public Art Commission." And then we chatted for quite a while. I think I was not able to attend the actual ribbon cutting. I chickened out because of the rain. But I did see some social media posts from folks who were in the crowd who made mention of the artwork and posted some photographs. I think the piece is cited nicely on the plaza. But let's hear from others of you who have been over to see it in person, if others have.
I agree. It's perfectly cited for that piece. I didn't get a chance to look at it closely. Did you?
Yes. Mhm.
So I thought from my viewpoint, it was well fabricated and looked
Mhm.
well done. So that was nice to see. I'm excited to see it at night. I haven't been over yet to see what that might look like, but
Yeah, I haven't either. It appears to be very, very well made.
yeah.
I was right up, right there. It appears to be really well made. There are two things there's one thing that does sort of bother me, and that is the fact that the piece comes up from the ground on a single post. And to me, the post bothers me, but it does not bother me to the point of like I would avoid going to the property to see it. We will need to be, I think, purposeful about the plaque placement, see where that makes the most sense. It looks like there's going to be really nice landscaping. I don't know who spec'd the plant material, but I drove by again yesterday on my way back from Kaiser, and I mean, there's some very nice plant material that will kind of surround the overall site. The building itself, I think, the detailing on the facade looks very nice. I'm sure the police are thrilled. I know Angie was she was really pleased after having been there since 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. But Michael, you might be the only person who's been there at night.
Yeah, and I did attend I was confused, I'll admit, of the ribbon cutting for Equitas versus the police station.
Oh,
But then, so I just went down anyway. I didn't stay because it was very pretty tight crew of people, and there was a sign in and all that. But it was the first time I could actually walk up and see it in daylight. So that was one. I mean, its scale is pretty impressive. I've heard a couple people be like, even from CB2, like, wow, it commands your attention even during the day without the lights. It's very, and I would agree, its placement feels great. And to the point about the post, I mean, I will say it does, you can walk right up to the sculpture. So, it's pretty intimate in terms of there being some other barrier way that you can't really get close to it. And I would agree that the fabrication seems like top level.
yep.
It's beautiful, very clean. I was there, then came back after I went to Corvallis on Sunday night It was raining and windy, but I did take a video clip. So that just note that that cycle of lights for its current programming is about 9 minutes in length from start to finish. So the cycle time of the changing of colors. And it's I'm hoping that there still, Heather, ribbon cutting or a more formal presentation for Equitas on the
So
calendar?
that was it.
Okay,
That's
so I did get it right, but
scheduled right now.
yeah, I had asked, and I'm not complaining, I just asked, that's kind of getting a vibe for what was going on there, and it was clear that this was a moment for the police department and city leadership and also the public. The rain was a deterrent, I think, Saturday morning, what do you want to do? Go stand in the rain. But so I don't know, since I didn't stay, if what they said in terms of the words regarding it. And I'm assuming that it was part of their agenda to mention the sculpture as well. But yeah, the building's beautiful. It's so great to see Salem getting these beautiful things. Yeah, and yeah, you need to go by at night to see the sculpture. I do think that the rain, my video clip looks great. Whenever the ground's wet, the reflections are really nice. So yeah, kudos to everybody. I think we did a good job.
Yeah, and Angie, who's their public information person at the police department, she said that she hoped that we would do something specifically for Equitas. And I told her that would, that was kind of on the horizon. I think we just need to figure out, given the social distancing, given the fact that they can still consider the site to be an active construction site, when is it reasonable for us to do something that, might introduce the work first to our arts community, and then, to others. And I don't think we have to make a final plan this morning. But it's beautifully made and it's huge. So people should be asking about it and people should know about it. And I still have some photographs that I need to share, but some of it was fabricated in panels that are assembled into the big, form. But I took a detailed shot of one that, it includes the word shalom, which means peace. Salem is named, it's the city of peace. And, it was pretty cool. I was curious when I saw your video, Michael, how long the sequence was for the color changes, because I guess I did not remember that the colors were going to go through the spectrum. I thought that they would be set to a specific color.
It goes through, yeah, from the red to the blues back to red or whatever. Yeah, I handheld my iPhone, had no idea it was going to be 9 minutes in the wind and the rain with no umbrella. But yeah, it was 9 minutes, and I'm sure they could program it any number of ways. I think that was the appeal, that we thought we could celebrate moments in time with switching it up. So, but I think that was it felt like, why would you want it to cycle longer than 9 minutes? If anything, seeing it for the first time, like anyone in the public would see it, it would be great that it kind of leveraged that it could move through that many colors. Because it looks completely different when it changes tone. So yeah, that's all I have to add to that.
So I had been informed that Mayor Bennett would speak briefly to Equitas. I hope that he did. I never did get final word on what his speech entailed. My apologies for that. And I didn't get any additional details other than 10 a.m. So that said, it is up to us. It sounds like, police is more than happy for us to do a separate event or otherwise as we see fit. I was told by Angie that she was recording, and I haven't seen that yet, but I could share that with the group. She was recording last Saturday. So it's up. I think it's up to this group what we want to do for Equitas.
Well, Rachel, by email, I think earlier this week, raised the question about a media release, pulling together all of the information. And I think that that is definitely important. So, you know, looking at the timeline for that would probably be the first step. And then figuring out, you know, a kind of a distribution plan for it. We don't have a lot of media outlets left in Salem, regrettably. But
So I'm happy to take a stab at that and start a news story about that. I'll work with Angie probably a little bit as well, and I could work with you all or a couple of you. I don't know when you think would be the best time to send something like that out.
well, Angie mentioned to me that, I mean, the building is not occupied at this point. Am I right about that, Spencer?
Yeah, I think it's going to be occupied in phases. I think the first is going to start in like 2 weeks, and then I think within the month they're supposed to be in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, it seems just on a practical level that we don't want to drive a lot of people over there because it is a live construction site. There are barriers up. I mean, Angie and I were in the street talking and we watched someone, she said, oh, I would go this way. And then she said, oh, there's a car coming out the wrong way. And the street is actually closed, although using alleys, you can snake your way in there. So, I mean, it seems like it would be better to be ready to release something when the building is going to be occupied and the street reopens. Because there's plenty of parking. And it's all new and yeah. I mean, there's not a rush. There is a Facebook page that monitors Salem City Council issues, and I have checked that not last night or today to see whether there is any chatter about this work on it, and there has not been since there was some early commenting a couple months ago. I take that as a positive. A number of people in the business community who I follow on social media made very positive comments about it following the ribbon cutting for the building on over the weekend. Took that as a positive. And, you know, it would be good to get a fresh quote from Blessing Hancock. And I am very grateful to the project itself for helping to find the money for the change order for the word substitution. So we should probably pass that on to Ricardo.
Rachel, did you have ideas specifically or who could cover a story or something? I know I kind of skimmed your mail.
Oh, it's fine. I didn't list a particular name. I was just saying, you know, we should try to get it out to the Salem Reporter and the Statesman Journal and probably the Salem Business Journal, you know, all the usual suspects. I think we could also get Oregon Art Watch to do something on it. You know, it's a significant piece of public art in Salem. And it would be nice to me, you know, to interview Blessing so that she can talk about her process and educate people about how the words were developed and where they came from and what they signify. So that was basically the gist of what I was getting at in that email. Did anyone say when the street work will be finished?
The street work is finished, but
it is, but the signage isn't up.
No, the street work is done. There, if you drive by the building, you can see that the front entrance side is basically finished. The back side, on the north side, the paving was underway. There were a lot of people on the site yesterday when I came back from Kaiser. And then the rest of the landscaping was going in. And since I haven't been inside the building, I don't know what is still underway going. Well, I don't know what is still being worked on inside. But there were a lot of people working yesterday.
Well, I can reach out and get more clarification on the timeline and when folks will be moving in, if that is indeed phased. And then I can get started on a draft release, and I can reach out to Blessing or speak with Ricardo, Angela. I don't know how much more time Angela will have for this, so I'm happy to ask her if how much she would like to be involved. But we can get that story kind of started. And then just be poised for whenever we want to release that, if folks are interested. And then I don't know, do we want to talk about having a separate event now or kind of wait on that discussion?
I think we could wait on that discussion until you get a better idea of timing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and also the plaque, the final of the install of the signage or whatever.
Yeah. I also think Travel Salem, would be a good place for some, story.
And press play, I don't know what she's doing in terms of print, but I think she's still doing some online
Right.
thing.
Yes. I think she's doing weekly online. And, I think Carly she's always looking for content. So, but I do think our main push should be pushed back to when the public will have access to that block. That just makes sense. I was there in the middle of the afternoon on Saturday, and I parked a block away and then crossed the barriers, on foot. And you don't want people and their families doing that stuff.
So, Heather, I was just going to mention that there's a lot of assets that have already been created around this because of the media outreach that Angie did early in the process.
Right.
So there's a press release that has some background information about Blessing, and then there's the video that they made that was done early on. I think it might be nice if it's possible to do this, to have a page on the city's website connected to the art collection that aggregates all of that information so that somebody can just, if they want to learn more about that particular sculpture, there's a lot of kind of background information that we could share.
That's a great idea. Our website, our webpage needs updated. I've said that for months now. But to have a separate page dedicated to this, that's what other agencies or entities have done for their new public art pieces. So yeah, at a minimum, we need I can work on a page for Equitas. We could probably do that for a couple of the other pieces as well if we wanted to, but I'll start there.
Yeah, because there was a video, I can't remember if Blessing is in the video, but Steve is in it. And
yeah, he is, right.
Like a conversation at the beginning of this whole process. And he talks a little bit about why the police were enthusiastic with this concept and, sort of the whole thing. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing those up again. Yeah, I'll look back at the previous content and I'll get started on that, and I'll just send information your way as we get started.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, is the convention center next on the agenda or the library?
You know what? I just realized we did not agree to the consent agenda for today or the minutes. I don't know if we want to do that quickly.
Let's do that quickly. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from our September meeting and the agenda for today?
I move to approve the minutes and the agenda for today.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great.
Motion carries. All right, back to our
Back
next
to our agenda. Yeah, convention center.
convention center. Michael and I have been serving on the selection committee for a work of art for the convention center. We made a second site visit in early October to McMinnville to view works by Richard Thompson that had been trucked back from his gallery in Texas. And very, very positive experience. And the paintings are beautiful. The selection committee met at the convention center 10 days ago, a week ago, and we considered the three artists whose works were kind of on the final short list: Rob Bibler, Richard Thompson, and Lucinda Parker. We determined that there was such strong work from both Bibler and Thompson that we were not going to make an in-person site visit to Rousseau Lee Gallery. We talked for a long time about the Bibler works and the Thompson works and voted to acquire for the convention center and bring the recommendation to SPAC to acquire a Richard Thompson piece. And Heather, is it possible for you to share an image of that?
I
And
think
then
so. Give me a minute. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then Michael, I'll let you add to the comments.
I think you pretty much summarized it up. Thanks for that. The only thing I would add, the scale of his piece, it's large, you know, is one thing, was one of the parameters we were really looking to fulfill. The piece is framed, it's already framed. So Richard Thompson, so we're in a holding pattern. I think Heather offered to be the one to reach out to Richard Thompson to notify him that we had made a selection. I guess we're still waiting in general terms to be able to let the artist know. And so that was one thing today, is just to clarify when that's going to take place, or when we thought it might take place. I've obviously would offer to be involved in contacting. His wife is the one who's handling all correspondence that I've been dealing with, given Richard's health. The pieces, in terms of its price, they really worked with us to extend quite a big discount on the price, which is great. Once we notify the artist that we've made the selection, then we can determine how we get it transported over to SCC. And then I think that Chrissy Birch let us know that there's still some things going on with FEMA or something that's been occupying, been using the convention center through the forest fires, etc. There's no rush to get it to convention center because it's still closed to the general public, to be able to install and hang it. So that's a big TBD. And you know, they could store it. I think her note was that they could store it somewhere until the time that we would install it if we wanted to transport it and call it a done deal. So that's all I have to add to that.
I will say this, I don't think that this image, at least as I'm seeing it on my screen, does the painting justice. It's richly colored. It's a beautiful, beautiful work. And seeing the Thompson works in person was really powerful. And having Richard there to talk about, you know, his love of water and fishing and insects and the landscape. And we happened to have that experience, I don't know, a week after the fires were intensely, you know, flooding the Willamette Valley with smoke. And this painting was just so refreshing to look at. So I hope that everybody, I just wanted to put that on the record because it's more beautiful than it's being shown on my particular screen, although I don't have a great laptop.
What is the size of the piece?
It's big, 78 by 100 and something.
109 or 108, yeah.
Yeah.
It's down there at the bottom. I think you can see.
Oh,
Or when it's out of my screen view.
yeah.
If that's the that's the latest one. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what images. The ones I provided were pretty clean, but it's a new point. Yeah, but it's I know it was 109 wide by almost 6 feet tall or something. So
Yeah, it's very large. I think it's going to really be a dramatic addition to the convention center. So I in terms of next steps, we have $9,000 and change for the 1%, the 0.5%. Oregon Artist Series pledged to contribute up to $6,000 to get that total up to $15,000 so that our buying power would be greater. As Michael mentioned, Richard Thompson and his wife have extended a deep discount because they are interested in having a piece in the convention center. I have a hard copy newspaper article from the newspaper in McMinnville, but the next time we see each other, I'll bring it to share. But, he grew up on a farm in Dayton. He's had very prominent academic, positions around the country. He has returned to his family, farm in Yamhill County. And it's a pretty cool story when you consider the territory that the convention center kind of represents. Anyway, we will need to get a check from the Oregon Artist Series Foundation payable to the city. And then that will give the city the total amount of money that they can use to pay Richard Thompson. So the Oregon Artist Series Foundation meets tomorrow, and I will attend that meeting. And Stephen Adams, who was part of the selection committee, and Mary Lou Zeke, who was part of the selection committee, will also be at that meeting. So I think we can get all the motions made and get a check written to the city of Salem. We'll figure out, does it get made to the Urban Renewal Agency or just to the city or what? I'll be looking for that guidance from you, Heather.
Okay, I'll reach out to Rebecca and get clarity on that.
Okay. And then FEMA is renting space at the convention center. They're not open for other business. And so there isn't a rush to get the work delivered. But now that if the building is not open, SCC could move some artwork around, to give this painting a good location. I don't think they've brought back a lot of their staff. Most of their staff is furloughed while the building's been closed. So, but anyway, I think that doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
So yeah, I did offer to reach out to Mr. Thompson if that's appropriate, unless somebody else would rather do that to get that. I know that we did need an invoice with some details on the painting as that next step forward.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do it. Again, I'm not trying to misstep here, but I've been dealing quite a bit over months and months. So I'd be happy to put it on my plate. And then, yeah, just let me know. And then otherwise, I think we talked about the same cover letter for all artists that were being considered that needs to go out eventually as well, just to make sure that that's on our to-do list, just to notify, thanking everyone for participating, that we made a selection. And I don't know if we have to disclose what was selected as much as just honoring their being interested in being part of the process and thanking them. So
I always think it's important to let people know what was selected. I think it's fair, it's a public process.
Well, they'll find out eventually if they want to.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think in terms of just kind of the PR and public information that, looking at, is there a release that talks about both the police station and this painting acquisition? Are they separate? There's some good stories. I mean, the Richard Thompson, this is about a guy who grew up on a farm in Dayton and then had this national career, and then, basically returned home to retire and paint. And he had a show recently in the governor's office, which I missed completely. But this newspaper article talks about the fact that, that was like a shining moment after a long career. It's like, I came home and then suddenly I get invited to have work in the governor's office. Like, what an honor. And, again, I just think working with Travel Salem, working with the convention center has a blog that's part of its website, and they put up, they do a good job with content. So, getting some of that stuff up there. And then once the SCC opens again, having an unveiling, something like that makes sense. Richard he's not in good health right now. So getting this done sooner rather than later, I think makes sense. He was a little overwhelmed by the site visit.
Do you want me to start the draft letter notification to the artist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm happy to review it.
Great.
It does turn out, the whole time I was there, I thought that I knew his wife, and it turns out that she is Kimberly Contreras.
Mm-hmm.
He is involved with a number of nonprofits in Yamhill and Washington counties. And so, and then she friended me on LinkedIn, but she's got a big network, especially within the Latino community, that I think would be help, and the newspaper in McMinnville is actually really good. So, and guess what? Because it's a Yamhill County artist, we can get Oregon Arts Watch to do a story on it because they have their freelancer in McMinnville. All right.
Okay, so just to make sure we're on the same page, so it sounds like, Michael, you're going to reach out to Richard, Mr. Thompson. Probably we want to wait until after the meeting tomorrow with Oregon Artist Series just to make sure everything's finalized. So let me know if he needs information from us to produce that invoice. I think you have the email with the details that Urban requested.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I will start a draft of the letter to all artists who were considered for this project, and I'll run that through Chris. Okay.
And I would just, as you're speaking to Richard Thompson and his wife, just let them know this is not for public release yet until they get a go ahead from the city.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. Okay. Coming up to 11:03. Let's move on to the library. Drove by the library on my way back from Kaiser also yesterday. And boy, it's amazing to see those windows on the side that faces west, those what had been the concrete blocks, they've been opened and they're all covered with plastic, but boy, that's going to be amazing.
So there was a meeting last Friday, is that right? Chris
Yes.
and Rachel joined Sarah and Packer Architects to chat with Amanda Wojcik for a little bit about where she was at in her design process. We had some technical difficulties and it sounds like she's having some issues working between multiple studios and such, but I'll let you guys discuss, I guess, how that meeting unfolded.
Yes, and Aaron Kimsey from the city was also on that call. So we had a Zoom meeting, and actually I had a phone conversation with Amanda yesterday. She reached out to me. So Amanda, we had a lot of technical issues, and I'm not sure the meeting was super successful. as a result of that. And I learned a couple things about why. But Amanda originally submitted a proposal. She was selected with the understanding that her design was going to go through some refinements before it was final. So what she presented last week, again, in a not terribly clear way because of the way this Zoom stuff was set up, was, I would say, maybe a step towards final resolution. Would you describe it as that, Rachel? She did not have a sketch, a schematic, a design that was fully resolved with her plan for an assembled metal work, wall hung work that would use sort of abstracted number symbols that came out of the Dewey Decimal System. And I guess Mr. Dewey has a checkered past. He's not revered by librarians. And so taking the Dewey Decimal connections, reducing that theme from the work is a work in progress. Amanda also had some kind of out on the edges surrounding shapes which are being removed. But it was hard for me to tell exactly what this work is going to look like. And that's why I think she called me yesterday, because I guess Aaron Kimsey suggested to her that this meeting be set up as kind of a casual studio walkthrough. That's how she described it. So of course, the studio situation at U of O is a big mess because you can't get access to all of them. And because she was trying to video herself holding up fragments, elements of the piece, it was very hard to tell exactly what was going to go on visually. We did agree that it would be good to have another check-in. The date for that has not yet been set. And I think that that's going to be important. I did tell Amanda yesterday, because she said, I just didn't feel like this thing went very well. And I said, well, I couldn't tell from my own screen the subtle color variations that she was pointing out. And so I said, I'm only one person. But I did tell her that what I wanted to make sure, I wanted to avoid any surprises as this design revision process moves forward. And I use the example of the police sculpture where decisions had been made on a final list of words before they came back to SPAC for final approval. And I said, I might be overreacting based on the fact that, I was surprised that words that I didn't know were on the list, and we did a change order. And then luckily the project paid for the cost of that. But I said, we don't want that with the library. And she actually mentioned that because she's a U of O art faculty member, she has been involved in many public art projects as a selection committee member. And she said U of O has actually created kind of a flow for projects where the committee comes together at certain points in the design process, a design and approval process. And she agreed to send that to me. I haven't gotten it yet, but as we move forward with projects in the future, that might be very helpful. But now that I know that her part in last Friday's meeting was conducting a casual studio walkthrough, then it makes a lot of sense, because it was pretty casual. It was a walkthrough. And she did say, I'm working between 3 spaces and I can't take you into 2 of them. So I get all that.
That's useful to know, because knowing that now what happened during the meeting makes a little more sense.
Right.
I guess it also, for me, brings up some questions of process around these public art commissions. that are percent for art projects, because what has happened on these two projects is that the Public Arts Commission isn't leading the process. And so I feel like that maybe could be part of the reason we're feeling, like you were saying with the police project, not understanding like the full list until we were well into the design, the actual construction of the work. And then with this, the directives that are given to the artist and the check-ins, the process there is sort of being managed by people who aren't used to working with artists. So I think that can be problematic.
I agree. I think, and I think once we kind of get through the library project, stepping back and looking at process improvements would be a good idea, because the city is organized by departments, and then the projects seem to fall within those departments, and there is not a through line of a project manager with the art as a priority. And so there's a lot of kind of learning while going, which has created some speed bumps, I think.
Yeah.
So I think stepping back, I did say to Amanda yesterday that I think it would be useful if more decisions could be made as a group, and not having an artist do a site visit with one person or a single phone conversation with an architect, and I said it's really important for a representative of SPAC to be part of all of those conversations, because each of us brings something to that process and can bring something back to the group, that needs resolution. But as soon as she said, this was, she almost said to me, what did you expect to get out of this meeting? And I said, well, I thought it was a check-in on design. And then she said, well, I was told it was a casual studio walkthrough. And then I said, well, that would have been great if we were in your studio, but we weren't,
right.
And then we had the technical problems where it just, people had to get hooked in through Hacker. And then I guess,
well, I could sense her frustration.
There was not a shared understanding of what the desired outcomes were for that meeting. And then she mentioned to me that U of O has a process where it's like, okay, there's a check-in at this point, there's a check-in at this point, there's a check-in at this point, and at this point. And that's true for every project, every public art project. So
Yeah, I think it would be useful, definitely, to see the project flow that they use for these types of things. But yeah, I could definitely sense her frustration during the meeting. I wasn't quite sure where it was coming from, because like you said, I was also expecting a design check-in. And so I was trying to understand if her process just didn't allow for that kind of explanation at that point, if she wasn't quite ready for that. But now knowing that she was doing it more as a walkthrough of her studio, makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I will take blame for some of that. I had let Aaron know that we just needed to check in with Amanda. And then I had to unfortunately jump and switch gears on another big project I was working on. So I asked that he go ahead. He had pushed that my way, and I asked him to go ahead and set that meeting up. And I just assumed, I guess, that folks understood kind of why we were wanting to regroup with Amanda, and then assumed that maybe she understood from our past conversations, but we didn't really flesh that out. So my apologies that was a bit more casual than we were thinking. I would, for one, welcome having the process a bit more defined, and would suggest that maybe that is also something that we include with the the scope or the final contract on their next big project, so that so everybody's on the same page from the get-go, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, I think my takeaway from Friday was no one was on the same page. No.
Also, I mean, the last project that we did, the police station piece, that piece was very process oriented. So the process itself was inherent within the artwork. This particular project is not that kind of project. It's there's no outside input that's going to be part of the finished piece. And when I say that, I mean the other project that had community input was the basis of the piece. And this is artist driven. And so the process is going to look a little different, but we need to define what the benchmarks are within the production of the work.
Well, I also think in terms of, when you look back at the Blessing Hancock work, she came to her artist presentation with a model, with a material sample, with a description of how the lighting was going to work. And then the community process had to do with the surface words and phrases, that formed the work. In this process, she brought a concept, around a number system that people got that connection. And then they asked for some revisions around color and massing, or on the wall itself. So, she's probably reworking 2/3 of her piece. And then I think without let's just say a schedule for those revisions, things are in a fuzzy phase, and I think they just need to get back into alignment. And I was impressed just with, she made some really good, she said, I am used to working in this realm. And, here on campus where they've got big public art projects, they've worked out more of a schedule, and we just haven't done that. So I think we can learn from best practices that others have. She also did say that there is one person at U of O, at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum, who is the through line for everything. And he's kind of like the traffic cop. So, and here we have different departments who have a lead. Anyway, Eileen, you had
different agendas.
I have a question. This sounds organizational, but are you both still comfortable with Amanda's artwork?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
I'm really
sure
glad.
the frustration.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I don't think it was anything to do with her capacity or her vision. It was just administrative in a way. I mean,
Has she articulated?
I think we were all kind of on the different.
Has she articulated her vision pretty clearly? Because I remember that first image, and there was a lot that I didn't think was.
Yeah, she's.
resolved.
I felt like she talked about how she was resolving some of those things, and refining the design based on the feedback that she had received. So we had talked about those kind of bracketed fur images. Those are no longer part of what she's working on, and she's taken out some of the other elements to make it less busy, which was some feedback that she was given. And so she's trying to use the material to develop the waterfall aspect of it more, and how the piece will look from different angles with the metal segments, how far they extend from the wall, and how they are folded. So I think she's definitely fine tuning it. I mean, one of the things she did talk about on Friday was how she's showing sort of perforations within the metal that now will be part. So I think she's getting more into the subtleties of the piece as she's made it less busy and taken out some of the things that we had suggested, and then refining the color scheme. So I felt really confident with her abilities and the fact that she was, how she was hearing some of the concerns and solving those problems within the art. Yeah, I think it was just, as Chris said, confusion about why we were meeting. And I feel really good about the fact that she reached out to you to talk about that, Chris, because I mean, that just shows me that she's eager to do a good job, and she wants the process to be more defined. She's kind of asking for that, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it was, and granted, I don't have a big screen here at my house, but she was really having trouble. She had some drawings on the wall that we really couldn't see properly because there wasn't enough contrast. It was ambient light. And then I literally could not, and I said this at our meeting on Friday, I couldn't even detect the color variations in the sample that she held up because I just couldn't, either my screen was too bad or her resolution was too low, or anyway. But I do think that maybe if Amanda comes to Salem for a site visit at the library, we meet up with her. We have a meet and greet with the commission, and she has a chance to, tell us how her work's going. I don't think that would be inappropriate. I have not been, because I had my hip surgery, I was never able to get inside the library on a trip that she made up here before. So I'm curious to see the space overall.
If folks are interested, I was told that I should just reach out to Alan Dannon or Aaron again. We are more than welcome to get a kind of updated tour. It sounds like they wrap up work in the afternoons about 3:30. So if we wanted to try to set something up for all of us to go back through, I don't know if Amanda would want to come back up, but we just need to schedule that. So I think that'd be great. I'd love to see it.
I'd love to see it, especially with those windows opened up. And I know Hacker, I think they circulated some, I don't know whether there were some revised interior colors or maybe the specs on the signage. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, it was mostly the signage, which I thought was kind of interesting. You should look at it. It was definitely more, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it. It was definitely more, well, graphic isn't the right word.
Yeah,
but it has these like leaves that show bathroom, and I mean, there's definitely like a visual language being used around nature, and I was surprised by that. They didn't talk about that in any of the earlier designs, so I don't know. That'll be interesting to see how that all comes together in the final design. But yeah, take a look at it.
But it sounds like summer of 2021, the project will wrap up. So there is time. I know Eileen and Paula both commented on the lighting for that gallery wall space at the library. And I'm thinking that in the next step in terms of the reinstallation of the existing collection, that you two will be the leads on figuring that placement out? And then will the Setzel screen return to a similar location to its past location, or is that still up in the air?
It can't be where the past location was because they said that that was no longer there, that spot.
Okay.
So it will have to be shifted. But what has happened is a shift in the library's embracement of the Setzel screen, which I'm very happy about.
Mm-hmm.
They are far more, before they saw it as an impediment because it interfered with sightlines.
Right.
And now they're seeing it as an asset. So that's a better place to be, trying to figure out where things are going to go to have that buy-in.
Yeah, that's great. I wonder how that happened.
I don't really know. We've been talking it up an awful lot, but I think that there was some other things going on too, including one meeting that Sarah mentioned where she was up in McMinnville, I believe it was, and she was actually proud of the collection. She was saying that she was able to talk about the collection, and she liked being able to talk about the collection.
That's great. That's
So,
great. Well, I am excited. So, let's see if we can set up something, inside the library building.
Okay, I'll reach out.
Sorry, my dog is barking, but I have a comment. I don't know if you can hear him or not. The mail just arrived. So one of the things that Amanda had talked about in her design was the influence of some of the existing art at the library, and the Setzel piece was one of those. So I wonder if that kind of made them look at it a little differently.
well, that's a good point, because there actually were a couple of artists who brought up the fact that the Setzel piece was influential for their design. So maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, just kind of changed the way they saw it a little bit.
Just by the way, Mark Smith, who presented in conjunction with his wife, Maria Inocencio, has a show now at Elizabeth Leach Gallery. If anyone, you can probably go online and view it, but just FYI. Okay, we're at the 11:28 a.m. mark.
I have one more thing, Chris, to talk about, and that was the Elsinore Theater. The executive director and the development director both reached out separately over the last couple of weeks. And the development director was talking about a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, up to $10,000. And she was hoping that it would help us with redoing the Mattingly mural. But reading it more closely, I don't believe it has that bent to it. It is instead more or less about helping an entity to organize their collection better. And so the money is actually going for that. It's more of a background on record keeping type thing, or basically how to care for their collection going forward. And so I actually do think it may end up being something that we might look at, this particular grant, because it may help us with some of our record keeping ourselves. So there was that. And then the other thing that's going on with the Elsinore is the Elsinore, as with all the arts organizations in town, has been hit hard by having to close their doors. And one of the things that the Elsinore is looking into is tying in the mural more into their marketing. And they would like to use the mural's image as part of marketing to engage the community a little bit more, not necessarily to fundraise off of the image, but to enhance the standing of the Elsinore in the community and make it more everybody aware of the fact that the back of the Elsinore is this mural that has become such an icon in the area. And so he is reaching out to Donnie Mattingly, who would still have the copyright on that. But also, of course, it would involve SPAC as well. So that is really in the beginning phases right now. And he's going to, after he talks to Donnie, approach SPAC about what we need to and I encouraged him to talk to Heather or to you about that.
Yeah, very interesting. I totally get their interest in trying to tie the mural to the front door of the Elsinore, because I bet that there are a lot of people who drive by who don't make that connection at all. I was thinking about the Mattingly mural yesterday and the process for putting the Elsinore in the National Register of Historic Places. And I was going to go back and read the National Register nomination and I got sidetracked. So I'm going to do that still. But, you know, when I worked for the Alaska State Council on the Arts, we had a large portable works collection. And every work that was acquired had a purchase agreement. And it's very well thought out, but the artist retained the copyright. And that was expressly done so that no one could take a work of art from that collection and put it on a placemat or use it on something. And yeah, I'd want to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I hear what you're saying, and I completely agree with that. I could see that there may be some ways to accommodate this in a limited way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but the very first thing I thought was buy-in from Donnie about that.
Yes.
And so when he's got that, then I think I just wanted to have it on SPAC's radar because this is coming up, and Tom Phone is definitely very excited about the possibility of this. And we will have to weigh in because it does affect part of our collection.
Well, I'm trying to think, was it in Chicago or Grand Rapids, Michigan, where there was a big, I think, Picasso sculpture? It's red. Maybe it wasn't Picasso, but anyway, that work of art, that public sculpture became so much of an icon for that city that they used the silhouette of that sculpture as the identity for that city or that part of the city. And, I mean, we have some design professionals in our midst. It'd be interesting to see what their thinking is around using that as part of a rebranding of the Elsinore.
Yeah, he is talking in terms of like wine labels and bags and things like that. But again, this is early on, and we can steer that at least to maybe something that would be a little bit more art related, like images of posters and that kind of thing, and selling a limited edition.
Yeah, it made me think that the original artwork, if there was ever before it ever became a wall mural, if there was ever executed on canvas or paper.
Yes, actually there is.
So that you could use a high-res image of something that could be printed or whatever, reproduced, rather than going off the visual of what the wall represents.
Right.
Distortion, shadows, all that crazy texture of the wall versus if they're, I mean, it would be my first question to find out, is there another original piece of art that references before the
Yes,
mural?
there is.
That's
There is.
great. Yeah. And what condition it's in, you know, those questions that you would naturally go to
Yeah.
determine how big it is. You know, is it a smaller thing or is it a pretty good sized piece of art? I thought of the same thing as an art poster printed as an art poster, not an offset printed, but more like a silk screen, limited edition, numbered
Yeah.
something.
And I don't think that Jim did that. I mean, Jim was a printmaker and a painter. And he taught over at Western Oregon. He was the head of the art department for many, many years. And but this is a painting, I believe, the first edition. But what is currently on the back of the Elsinore now is also very, very clearly part of Dan Cohen's reinterpretation of it. And so it's not exactly the same as what Jim originally had.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, it's lovely how that happened, because you really do see the two different artists. The images most people would not see it, but if you really look closely, you'll see quite a shift on some of the.
When did he do that?
Pardon? Why did he do that? Because of the fact that it had faded so much, some of the guidelines were a little less clear, and we gave him that permission to use it, and he has the image. The image is all there, but for instance, the eyes were of Theda Bara. The eyes are treated a little differently than they were originally. The thought is all very true to what Mattingly originally had. But it has a slight different artist's interpretation.
Interesting.
So Eileen, just to clarify, are they asking to license the image for use in their promotional materials?
They haven't used that formal language yet. They're just, he's really, the Elsinore is in difficult straits right now. And he's exploring a lot of different avenues to help bring in some money. And this is one of the things that they thought about. He would be wanting to use it in some marketing. And my feeling is that it's up to us to make sure that it's kept to what we're comfortable with. And also, I want to be absolutely adamant about protecting the copyright of the artist in that regard too. What will happen eventually is that all this stuff will get muddied. If we say, yes, you can use it for marketing, very soon it'll be, another 10 years from now, it'll be a whole bunch of different people over at the Elsinore. It'll be a whole bunch of different people at the city of Salem. And so these things need to be very, very clear.
Right.
Copyright.
Well, we don't have the copyright. I mean, the artist is living.
Correct.
And
no, the artist.
Or sorry,
Jim Mattingly's dead.
his son. I'm sorry, I meant his son. That is.
His wife is still alive. Yeah.
And so the estate retains the copyright, and so they can't do anything without permission.
Correct.
From the artist, or the estate of the artist, sorry. So, and then the city owns the artwork. So we would have a say in how it's used.
Yes, we would have a say, but we would not, Donnie Mattingly would have the ultimate say if she gives permission.
Right.
I still think that because we own the artwork, but we don't really own it. We are caregivers, carekeepers of the artwork. that we do have some stake in how the image is used.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah.
when you originally said marketing,
I know.
I did not, that to me did not connote wine labels or a tote bag.
Yeah.
So
So
they're talking about merchandise to
right, they're
generate
talking about
revenue.
product. I hope that they are having some kind of a focus group to see whether what level of community interest there is in products like this.
Yeah, and I don't think, and in fact, Tom Phone said, it isn't so much a money maker off of merchandise. That's not what they're after. What they're trying to do is raise the awareness and cement the connection of the mural to the building in the hopes of raising, because it has become iconic, in the hopes of raising the status of the Elsinore itself in the community.
Yeah.
And I get that. I get what he's doing in that regard, but I don't want to cheapen the mural or this piece of artwork. So that's the role I kind of see as SPAC's job, is to safeguard that.
Yep. I'll tell you, these performing arts venues are in such a very difficult position right now.
They really are.
I mean, if we can keep half of them alive, I think we'll be lucky.
I think that originally I was feeling very protective of the mural, and then it hit me just the perilous situation that the Elsinore is in.
Did they receive money from the Oregon Cultural Trust as part of that large appropriation?
Yeah, I don't know.
That 25 million started out with a venue buyout, a venue lifeline. And I don't know if they were line itemed in that, but well, this is how I got into that conversation with the mayor, because the mayor wanted to make sure that Salem got its share. And I think the Elsinore is in there somewhere. But, you think about everything that they do, lobby rentals, weddings, the Wednesday night movies, subleases to nonprofits, et cetera. And they just can't do any of it.
Everything is gone.
Yep.
Even there, they had a program that they were actually putting together a musical and taking that on the road,
right,
as a production. And that had to be dropped.
Right.
So everything is no longer there for them.
I get it. Well, I hope someday we'll be able to meet in person, because, I mean, we don't do our work alone, and our community is only going to be as, rich as we have assets, theater, music, poetry, architecture, public spaces, public art. And I hope we get through all this.
I just pulled up that list and it looks like they didn't get any money. I'm surprised.
Wait, didn't get money from the Cultural Trust?
I'm looking at the list of Marion County, unless they operate under another name. I'm just running down this list and I don't see them.
They don't, but there is another $13 million or more that came out parallel to that was for venues, and the Elsinore could be on that list.
Okay.
There was a $50 million total.
So sorry, I just had a question, Chris, if you know the answer to this. How did they identify the organizations by county? Was that through the Marion County Cultural Development Corporation?
No,
Did they work with them?
nonprofits submitted an application.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there was $50 million. 25 of it was competitive. There were other carve outs. So like Shakespeare got a bunch of money. Performing arts venues got a bunch of money. That's how it started. Then there was a competitive application process that was very simple. anyone could apply if you had to be a 501c3. So, and then those went into the Oregon Cultural Trust. They made decisions on a certain level, and then they took it back to the counties to kind of verify that their instincts were right. You know, like this was a viable community theater and this is a community arts center or what have you. And then there was some formula basis, I know, that factored into things. Yeah, but it was an open competitive process. You just had to be on the ball and get an application in. But you can find that list of venues somewhere. I'd look for it now, but I'm gonna have to get off the call to go to Corvallis.
Okay.
I'm going to throw out too that our next meeting is on Veterans Day. So I assume maybe I should follow up with a doodle for everyone to see when we want to regroup for our November meeting.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Maybe we could consider that Tuesday. If, you know, I'm flexible. I have no work since all these arts organizations are life support.
I teach on Tuesdays, so it's not a good day for me.
Okay, that's good to know. Don't offer up Tuesday. All right, on a happy note, I'm going down to see the new museum in Corvallis, the Benton County Museum designed by Allied Works Architects.
Nice.
They have a big time photographer coming down to shoot the project, so I'm going to go down and join them.
Fun.
I'm bringing my iPhone for my own documentation. Okay, I hope to see you all at something around Equitas in the near future. And then I'm really excited about the Richard Thompson painting.
Cool.
Okay, I'm signing off.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chris.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.